Today I'm talking to Melissa Delport. She's a certified integrative health coach, a photographer, and a food stylist. And I'm very excited to have a bit of a chat with her today. And I'm honored to be able to ask you a few questions on the book. So, Melissa,
Thank
maybe
you.
just give us a bit of a summary, of what the book is about, what type of person would benefit by reading it.
Amazing. So Heal Begin with Food is my second book. My first one was Whole Bowl Food for Balance, and Whole Bowl Food for Balance was about moving away from toxic diet culture and this sort of diet society that tells you which foods are good for you and which foods are bad for you, and sort of blanket statements everybody with what they should be eating. So Whole was about moving towards real whole food living, and not cutting out these major food groups and really learning to nourish and love your own body. And then Heal was born, which is obviously the book we're chatting about today. So Heal Begin with Food is about not only whole food and real food living, but also looking at the emotional body that's driving the food decision. Really, as I say in the book, you can be the most stressed human in a toxic relationship and in the most, dysfunctional job and deeply unhappy. I can give you all the kale I want in the world, and I can tell you to eat absolutely no carbohydrates, and it's not going to solve anything. So Heal is really about looking at our emotional bodies and our physical bodies, and moving towards real whole food and really seeing food as medicine, and knowing that food is not the enemy, nor is your body, and that if you eat this real whole food, you really start to heal not only physical ailments with the food, but also start to really get in touch with your emotional body. So that's sort of the summary of the book journey so far.
Yes, and that's beautiful. I absolutely love it. And I agree with you. And I think there's so many people out there who, they're still stuck with when you're healthy, you're skinny. There's this weird link
Yes.
between that's the only measurement of when you're healthy. And that's just not true. And that's why I love your definition of health in your book. You say, healthy includes sleeping well, having a happy digestive system, a calmer state of mind, balanced hormones, well-managed stress. So, it's so much more integrative and comprehensive. And so why do you find that each of these aspects, why do you include each of these aspects specifically in your definition of health, and why do you find that they are important?
Well, I mean, if you really look at it, if we want to be well as humans, believe that we need to stop putting all the eggs in the basket of food. And the irony is, yet food is where you start in order to heal. But what I find that happens with most of my clients, because I private coach, is that we put all the baskets and the eggs in the basket of food and expect food to be the be all and end all solution. If we don't eat the carb, then we'll lose the weight and we'll be happy. And it's actually, they're not connected at all. And like you said earlier, thin and healthy aren't the same thing, which is quite an obvious thing when I say it out loud. If we have somebody who is suffering from anorexia, we know that they're not healthy. They might not have the weight, but they're not necessarily healthy. So what we start to see is that everybody has this sort of minimized view on health, and we've put it down to diets rather than looking at it and, as I do as a holistic health coach, the whole picture. And the whole picture includes being well. How do we be well? How do we feel well? Because this is what makes us happier, more productive human beings. If you're not sleeping, there's absolutely no way that you're going to manage your health, because if you're not sleeping, you're tired. When you're tired, you crave sugar. When you crave sugar, you can pick up weight. When you pick up weight, you beat yourself up. The problem is not the weight or the sugar. The problem is the fact that you're not sleeping. So really, in order to be well, you need to nourish all these different aspects of your life.
Yes, exactly. And so often we use food to nourish all the other aspects as well, right? So if the other aspects are out of balance, we tend to just use food as a coping mechanism, and I see this so often.
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, the food's not going to balance the emotional state. It's just going to push down the emotional state. If we're eating, we're pushing down the emotions rather than letting the emotions come up and feel them. And if we don't, how does it work with emotions? All the emotions are meant to be felt. And if we don't deal with it, it will deal with us. And it does so through food. And unfortunately, food then gets used as a punishment or as a coping mechanism rather than actual nourishment, which it will then never in turn keep us in balance. We attempt it, but it can't keep us in balance because if you're deeply innately unhappy, like I say, kale's not going to solve that.
No, exactly. So yeah, and I guess what kind of adds on to this is what I've often seen is when people, you know, they tend to have a lot of strict rules around eating. You know, like you said, we're not allowed to have the carbs, more kale, only veg, only green veg, and bland chicken and broccoli. You know, and then there's almost this rebel that comes to play because the rules are too strict. And there's a part of you that rebels against the strict rules, and then you tend to want to binge and overdo it. And then after that, what often happens is we just make the rules even stricter, you know, and then we're stuck in this vicious loop almost of rules and rebelling and binging. And I love your approach, what you write about in your book. You use, or you love to teach your clients about intuitive and mindful eating. And you find that this is a much better solution than this whole rule making and breaking out and all of that. So why do you find that works, or does it work, and how does it work?
I lost you there for a second, but I heard, you know, a lot about the rules and the rules that we place on ourselves and us sort of rebelling back against the rules.
Yes.
And then I lost you just after that. So just repeat the end of the question there for me.
Yeah, so what I love is that what you suggest is that instead of making the rules even stricter and being stuck in that vicious loop, you suggest trying intuitive and mindful eating, right?
Yes, 100%. Because at the end of the day, as humans, the minute you say you can't do something, it's in our nature to push back against it. If somebody says you may not, you want to, you know, we know this, you know, with smoking or all these sort of really unhealthy habits that can creep in. And even when it comes to food, the reality is the minute you put rules on yourself, you're going to want to push back against them. And then really what's happening is you're setting yourself up to fail. And then what happens is that when we fail, we blame and shame ourselves for failing, yet we set ourselves up to fail. So, what I invite in is mindful eating, which is really becoming conscious in the moment of consumption and really connecting with our food. You know, we have the privilege of knowing where, most of us have the privilege of knowing where our next meal is coming from. And that's quite a blessing in itself. Most of our country lives below the breadline. So to give thanks for your food and where it's come from is quite a beautiful moment to connect with it. And then really to chew it slowly, to breathe before you eat it, and just connect to your breath and really become conscious in what you're doing and what are you eating. Most of us know what's not good for us. We know that when it comes to processed foods, refined sugars, you know, really chemical laden products that come in a packet that were made in a factory, this is not good for us, and we know this. And you know, often, like I say to my clients, you don't hire a health coach to tell you what not to eat. 90% of society has told you that. I'm here to teach you what to eat and how to eat it. And yeah, that's when it comes down to that mindful eating and really being conscious with what we're eating. And with the intuitive eating, when you start to lessen everybody else's noise and opinions about what you should be eating for your bio individual body, and you start to eat real nourishing God made, your God, whichever God it is, food, you know, that was made by nature. When you start to eat this type of food and you eat it really mindfully, what starts to happen is your body actually starts to communicate to you. We dismiss the body's biofeedback so often. Oh, I get heartburn. I just dismiss it, take an enos or whatever it is, move on, and I keep eating it. And I invite in the premises of what if you actually listen to your body? What if you actually tuned into what really works for your individual body? Because not everybody should be eating the same. Not everybody can eat the same. Some people can eat a lot of meat and their digestion doesn't take strains. I eat a lot of meat personally, and I have a sluggish digestive system, and it can put me into pain. But when we are so busy and watching the cell phone, the kids, while we're eating, we're on the run, doing all these things, we tune out of the sensation in the body. And the sensation in the body is constantly our biofeedback, right? So what starts to happen is that we start to see that we're so disconnected from our own bodies that we don't pay attention to them, and we just eat whatever and then restrict whatever, then beat ourselves up because we couldn't restrict whatever we were told to restrict it. And it just becomes a complete hot mess. And with women, what I do see is that there's a lot of guilt and shame connected to our food, and then in turn anxiety. And because we're looking at the emotional body, when we feel that anxiety, when we're anxious, we don't want to feel the feelings, so we push them down and we eat. This is what we call emotional eating. When I'm bored, I eat. When I'm anxious, I eat. When I'm upset, I eat. And we start to see that rather than feeling our feelings, we're eating them. So it's so all interconnected, and that's why we talk about it as a holistic approach. But yeah, so intuitive eating is really tuning into the body, tuning into your moment, and honoring your body with real whole food, and then tuning into that biofeedback that it's going to give you. Again, some people can't eat a lot of raw veg. Veg is a healthy food. Is where we would encourage lightly steaming or sauteing the veg before you eat it. So everybody's different, and that's really intuitive eating, is tuning into your intuition and eating accordingly.
Yes, it's beautiful. And I think, it kind of ties into the innate intelligence of the body, right? So there is this innate intelligence when you're eating, the whole digestive process. You don't have to tell the body to do it. You start secreting the saliva and the digestive juices, and the small intestine absorbs the nutrients and all of that. It just happens. And like you explained,
100%.
like you explain in your book, when we hurt ourselves or cut ourselves, it is going to heal itself in time, and we do trust the body in that sense. But with eating, it seems like there's a lot of lack of trust in terms of my body 100%. Will tell me. I can't trust my body to know when to stop eating. And why do you think this is?
I think that, if we look at just the space of I don't trust my body, I think that it's multifaceted. It's so multifaceted. When we are younger, and I speak a lot from a woman's perspective because I am one and I identify as one. So, when we're younger, everybody has that moment as women where we realized that if we aren't a certain shape on our physical appearance, that we are, by society standards, not really actually accepted. Mm-hmm. And then, I think that that's one of them. I think that, we can talk about childhood trauma, things that can happen in the home, be it a parent that picked on the way that you're eating, thought that your weight wasn't acceptable, whatever it is, let's link it to sort of trauma, because trauma is relative, right? So when we have these experiences within our childhood, we carry them into our adulthood. And what we start to see is exactly that, the mistrust of the body, because the body has failed us according to these absolutely ludicrous standards that have been set up by society, a parent when you were younger, whatever it was. And then we stop to trust the body, and we stop tapping into the sensation in the body, highly linked to childhood trauma, but also just linked to our busyness. We are like cell phones in today's society. We are always on. We are always on. I can email you at 10 o'clock at night, and there's a high probability you're going to check your phone for it. And we shouldn't be doing this, in the sense that we are not designed to be doing this. 700-800 generations ago, we were hunter-gatherers, and we haven't changed on a physiological level much since then. So yeah, the body has this ancient wisdom. It knows better than our conscious state. And unfortunately, we let our thinking get in the way of our feeling. And our feeling is really what the body's about, right? Because if you look at something like your subconscious is constantly keeping you safe. That's how you drive home after work thinking about, oh, what am I going to make? Do I need to fetch the kids? What is my husband doing? Whatever your thoughts are. And then before you know it, you arrive in your parking bay at home, and you're absolutely fine. So we see that the subconscious is constantly keeping us safe and constantly making sure that we are not in danger. And it does so through familiarity and seeking patterns. And the minute we, start to look at that, the subconscious identifies familiarity and patterns through sensations and biofeedback without you even consciously paying attention to it. So, looping back to it, it's that we have the sensation in our body, but we've tapped out of it. Why? And that's for everybody to individually sit with, be it dysfunctional relationship when you were younger, be it, dysfunctional behaviors through eating disorders, be it the fact that you're just not tuning in because you're too busy. What is it? Why are you not feeling the way food makes you feel? And why are you not feeling the way that you feel? Because it's not all about the food, it's like I say, the food sort of the end goal. It's the manifestation. By the time we're emotional eating, we're eating, the eating is the symptom, it's not the cause. What is driving the emotional eating is the cause.
Yes, exactly. And we use food for so many reasons. We touched on that a little bit earlier, but no, it's not just the negative emotions. We also use food to celebrate things, and we're happy. So I think this is quite an interesting distinction that you make in the book. You talk about primary and secondary food, right?
Yes.
So what's the difference between the two?
So primary food is your career, your spirituality, your exercise, your relationships, and areas within that, your joy. And your secondary food is that what you put in your mouth. See, food is secondary. Food is just petrol, right? It's just fuel. That's all it is that your body needs fuel to run. If you don't have it, you can survive on water for a little while, but eventually you will starve and you will die. So that's just taking all the emotions out of food. What is food? It's going to drive the body to functioning. Different parts of the body use different things to function. Your brain breaks down, your body breaks down complex carbohydrates into glucose, and then those glucose feed the brain. So your brain needs complex carbohydrates to function, or needs healthy glucose. And when we talk glucose, I'm not talking refined sugars. I'm talking sweet potatoes or butternuts or these type of foods. We do need them in the diet in order for the brain to actually get its nourishment. So when we look at it on that level, food is just fuel. And when our primary foods are in balance, food becomes just that, it just becomes fuel. We have this massive emotional attachment to food. And don't get me wrong, understandably so. I can catch anybody, I'm sure, in a trap with a trip to Italy to go eat pizza and pasta and the red wine and the squares and the cobblestone courtyards. There's this romanticizing of food that we have as humans, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think it just can get into the space of, if we romanticize or let the emotions drive it often enough, what starts to happen is it becomes out of balance. And the main goal here is to achieve balance, right? Homeostasis, which is balance within the body, means that we're functioning at optimum. We're putting diesel into a diesel tank, not diesel into an unleaded tank, because we all know how the latter ends, right?
Exactly. So if someone's watching and they're thinking, oh my gosh, that's exactly me, I'm eating my emotions, I'm not in tune with my body, what's the first step for them? Where can they start if they want to go onto this healing journey?
Well, I definitely would say that I'm very proud of them in that moment, because that moment is really the moment of awareness. And without awareness, we can't shift anything. And, at the end of the day, we really have to have that moment, that aha moment, that what my behavior is not actually serving me, and to ask the question why and what and how. So I think the moment of awareness is really powerful. And then I would definitely recommend buying both of my books, because they really do share, they're my health Bibles, and they're my healing journey so far, personally, and for those out there as I work as a coach. They really are. Heals become my health Bible. That's what I wanted. I wanted to put something in your hand that can personally empower you to become your own self healer, and that you can really start your health journey in a really powerful, meaningful way. And then, of course, there's my health coaching. So anybody can visit me on my website, and come and find me. I do private coaching, one-on-one sessions. We work virtually like this, so you can be anywhere in the world. And then I also run here in Cape Town coaching circles, which is in a group setting, very small, very intimate, obviously very mindful at the moment of what is going on with COVID. So it's in a very small, intimate setting, only 10 participants. And we work over a space of 4 months, 2 Wednesdays on, 1 Wednesday off. And we really start to unpack all these different emotions and food choices and life through these 2 lenses of our primary and our secondary food. You know, what is going on there? What is happening for you there? What is your experience in that moment? And when we start to gain awareness and deeper understanding, we have the opportunity to shift it. And that's where we really start to get into neuroplasticity. You know, we are what we repeatedly do. So if we, you know, repeatedly reinforce healthier habits, those will be what we become. So with coaching, it just allows that space.
Yeah, and with time, it can actually become your new normal, right? If you
exactly.
do. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think, yeah, for many people, it's just not. It's too difficult to do it on their own. So they need that support, and they need to have that accountability and someone who can just walk them through all of it, because it's not that easy, right?
Exactly. And I think that we blame and shame and judge ourselves a lot. We lack empathy for ourselves and compassion for ourselves. And I think that, well, I know that, you know, the coaching works because A, it's over a long period of time. So we look at long-term sustainable practical changes that are achievable for everybody in their individual lives, in their unique states, because not everybody's story is the same. And we also see that, you know, that this isn't taught at school. You're not taught how to put together a nourishing, real whole food plate that's going to look after you and look after the body's functions and systems, that's going to make sure, you know, as women, we have balanced hormones, as humans, we have, you know, healthy guts, because we see that, you know, our gut microbiome is so important. We see we got more messages coming from our gut to our brain than from our brain to our gut. It's our second powerhouse. It really is, for me, my first powerhouse, because if my gut isn't well, then nothing is well, you know, because you feel unwell. So the program works because it's long-term changes, and you have somebody holding your hand that moves you out of that shame and blame cycle and shows you and teaches you with love and compassion and kindness how to really look after yourself on a fundamental level. Because diet culture, I think, has just put us into fear, right? Don't eat the carb, fear that. Don't eat the banana because the banana is high fruit. Don't eat the quinoa because there's a carb in it, when one has potassium and the other one is a whole protein. So really we should be eating them, and they're really good for us. You know, again, this is all based on bio individuality. You do get the odd body that doesn't sit well maybe with a banana, and that's okay. There's plenty of other fruit under the sun, but it doesn't mean that we have to fear the banana. It just means we honor the body, knowing that the body doesn't do well when it eats banana. So it's a different relationship that we foster in the coaching programs with, and that I hope to foster with the books, with our relationship with food. And that's one of positivity and love and kindness, rather than shame, blame, and deprivation, because it doesn't work. Yeah. Diets don't work. They've never worked. If they worked, then it wouldn't be a multi-million-dollar empire, or billion-dollar empire. It wouldn't be that if diets worked, because you'd do the diet once and you'd never have to do it again. But they don't work. And unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of people that are more interested in making money than interested in us being well. And I'm interested in us being well, because the end goal, right, is to be there for your grandchildren one day, and to have a long, happy life, and to grow old and not get old, and be in a wheelchair and have these health issues, diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer's. You know, they're calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. We're seeing that the way that we eat is deeply impacting the health of the brain. And if you impact the health of the brain, it will get sick.
Yes, exactly. And I think something, when you're talking about the health industry and kind of the lies that we've started believing, another one is that a healthy life is almost a punishment, right? You're not supposed to enjoy the food that you're eating. It's supposed to be bland, and you're not going to enjoy it. And that's such a big lie. And I love that you're showing us in your book, eating delicious, eating healthy is delicious.
Frightfully delicious.
Absolutely.
It's frightfully delicious.
Yes.
It's almost the bad joke behind it, because, you know, I mean, I've worked with everyone from, you know, people that are doing high training programs and all they eat is chicken and broccoli and it's like steamed and there's nothing else. And, you know, right through to people that have tried every diet under the sun, myself included. I've done every diet under the sun and none of them worked. Surprise, surprise. But when I discovered this way of eating, it was like, it's like a sick joke on society. I'm like, you know, people, the first thing they say is healthy eating's boring, or healthy eating is bunny food, or where do you get your protein from? What are you going to eat? And I'm like, where does a cow get its protein from? It grows to 250, 300 kilograms and it eats only grass. So it's fine. Nobody panic. You'll get your protein and you'll be absolutely fine, which I know within South Africa, it's cultural and I mean, it's our heritage to love meat, right? But I really do challenge the nuances of that in both books. Both books, well, the first book has meat in it. And I teach you, you know, again, it's bio individuality. I'm not going to tell you to be vegan because I don't believe in any restriction. I don't believe in any restriction. I myself eat meat, but more than worrying about a hashtag meat free Monday, I worry about where my meat is coming from. How was my meat treated? How was my meat raised? Was it raised in a feedlot and a farm where it's mass production, animals being shouted and whipped and moved and shoved antibiotics? And, you know, how is this animal being treated? Because for me personally, on a spiritual level, you know, if you're eating meat that's been traumatized, you're eating trauma. And on a cellular level, I don't believe that can be good for you. So, you know, rather than a meat-free Monday, worry about where your meat is coming from. Support your small scale farmer that's ethically and, you know, with love and kindness and pride raising their meat, not just raising their meat because they've got to make so much money a month and, you know, that's the only bottom line that they're concerned about. So yeah, in the books I definitely challenge the nuances of eating meat. The first one includes meat, but I show you how easy it is to leave meat out. And the second one actually doesn't have any meat in it at all. It's completely plant-based. It's not vegan, it's not vegetarian, and it's not plant-based. It's just yummy food. But if we had to put it into a category, it doesn't have meat. But again, I address it at the beginning of the book where I say, if you want to add meat, add meat. As South Africans particularly, we do not need help cooking meat. We know how to cook meat. If there's one thing we can do as Braai, we don't need help. We know how to do it. So if you want to add a chop, if you want to add a piece of chicken, by all means, add it. But I'm here to show you how yummy, decadent, delicious, healthy, plant-based, real food living can be, right the way through to the dessert section. My dessert sections are refined sugar-free. Most of them are dairy and egg-free, and they're frightful. They are so yummy. I've had meat eaters and vegans and everybody eat them, and just they're utterly delicious. So it's kind of this bad joke, right? Is that we've come from this deprivation of like, don't eat the carb. Girl, I show people how to eat the carb and love the carb on another level. And in turn, it starts to love you back. Because when you love your food and you celebrate your food, your body, and this is when we're talking about real whole food eating, your body just, it steps into this another energetic space where you have energy, you sleep well, you feel well. And then all of a sudden, this anxiety around food starts to dissipate. And I think that's probably my greatest wish, right? Is especially for women, that we start to trust our bodies and we have less anxiety around food. I mean, this is what gives you the energy to get up and take your children to school. Why hate it?
Yes. I mean, you're obviously really passionate about food, but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Can you tell? Can you
Even
tell?
eating it, even chewing it makes me happy. It's quite crazy.
So I'm curious, you know, where your love for food started.
Oh, so my love for food started with my mum's side of the family. My mum, my grandmother, and my aunt. Um, sure, when I was 7 years old, I was baking cakes in the kitchen. My earliest memories are in the kitchen at my grandmother's knee and at my mother's knee, learning how to bake a cake and put a potato in the oven, and you know, just to be in the kitchen and to be together in the kitchen is really, I think, where my love of food started. And then it consistently just grew over time. But the irony was I also was in deep pain around food. which was quite radical, because the first time I was put onto a diet, I was 11 years old, right? Through no fault of my parents, they did the best that they knew with the information that they had at the time. And my mom came from the school of thought that a happy child is a chubby child, which, listen, nothing wrong. And then when I got older, all of a sudden I started to realize I wasn't the same shape as the other girls at school. And that's where it starts, right? Is that, what is wrong with me? Why don't I look like that in a cozy or whatever it is? So anyways, I was put on a diet at 11 years old, and that kind of set me up for the next 15 years of my life, where I had deep anxiety around food, yet on the complete polarity of that, I had a deep love of food, where I cooked all the time, and I was one of the friends, and still am the friend, where everybody phones and goes, you know, that dish, how do we, or if I want to substitute that, how do I? And so, and I had that relationship with my gran when she was still alive, and I have that with my mom, and it just is one of really celebrating food. So there was this like duality of really being in pain, because everybody's telling you, don't eat the carb, this is bad, you got to get thin, and then internalized, I've got to get thin, mustn't eat that, I mustn't eat that, that's bad for me. But on the other side of it was, oh my gosh, I love food and I love cooking so much. So there was this like constant duality. And then, as life would have it, 28 years old, I just had that penny drop, right? That thin and healthy aren't the same thing. At the same time, I entered MasterChef South Africa, the last season that aired. I had like 5 seconds of fame. I was like, I think I got voted off the island on like the first day. Like, it was literally like 5 seconds of fame. But afterwards, I really identified, and obviously I'm a photographer by profession. I then just decided I need to photograph food, and then I started photographing food, and then I was like, I want to blog about food, and then I just went further and further down the rabbit hole. And that, combined with my newer knowledge of health and wellness, and hungering for that information, and really searching and researching and reading podcasts, just I consumed everything that I could around wellness and health. And that's really how the books were born, is when I had that moment of, I absolutely love food, and oh my gosh, it's not the enemy. I was like, everybody needs to know this. I have to share this, because I was in a lot of pain, and I was in a very dark space around food. To not know what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, it's stressful, and it's anxiety provoking, and it's debilitating. It's debilitating. It brings people to tears, and it's so shameful in that space, that not only are we suffering in that emotional space, but we're not even talking about it, because talking about it is, you don't know, or you're not thin enough, or whatever the attachment to that pain is. And yeah, I think that, having come from that space and being in the other side, I guess I now feel, and that's, I think, the passion that people feel when I talk about it, is that it's my calling now to share this with people, that you don't have to be like, it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be, I don't sleep, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I don't know what to eat, I hate my job, da, 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 da. Doesn't have to be that feedback loop. There's actually a feedback loop on offer of, I love what I eat, I don't argue with what I eat, I sleep well, I feel well, I be well, I have an abundance of energy, I love my life, I have energy for my life, I celebrate my life, I have joy in my life. That is a feedback loop available to you. And I think that, it's become my life's mission to be able to share that with people.
Yes. And the moment you stop obsessing about the food, there's so much space that opens up for the rest of your life. There's so many other things. There's so many pleasures, so many beautiful things out there that you can enjoy if you're not obsessing and thinking and worrying about the food and your body and all of that. So it's
exactly.
so much
And that's
more.
why we call food secondary, right?
Yes.
Because food is just secondary. If you make the space for the rest of your life, and you nourish and tweak and look after and honor the rest of your life, food's just secondary. It's this beautiful thing, don't get me wrong, I'm obsessed with it, and I love to cook it, eat it, chew it, swallow it, the whole thing. I love the whole kit and caboodle. But the reality is that it's just secondary. You've got the whole other rest of your life going on. And unfortunately, this toxic diet culture and this fear of food that's been driven because of the goal to get thin has shut down, in many ways, our connection to the rest of our lives. because it's consumed us. And it's exactly like you say, it's like what you resist persists. And you know, we enter that space of resistance, and what is the food, and why did you eat that? You shouldn't have eaten that. You know that that's so many calories, and then and it's all consuming. It's all consuming, and it's debilitating. And I know what it's like because it was me 5-6 years ago. That was me. It was all that I thought about. It was all that I did. I mean, I did, and I mean, it's not blaming or shaming, and it's not to say that these don't perhaps work for some people out there, but from my personal experience, I did Atkins, Banting, Schuss, and way less, Slender Wonder, Herbalife. I did Ducan. I did the speed pills in my 20s. I did the injections in my 20s. I did everything because I had to get thin. And it just was all consuming, and so much money. I mean, so much money that I have spent on diets and diet books, and none of them worked. And then when I invited in this way of eating, I subsequently lost 25 kilograms, and they've not returned back to me for 6 years, and I don't even think about them anymore. And I eat all this incredible food, and I'm as happy as a lark. And I just, yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about it, because people need to know this. Like, this is the best kept secret of life, right? Is to be well.
Yes. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring to see you talk about that, inspiring to know that there is another solution out there. We don't have to be stuck in that way of thinking around food and diet and weight.
And that pain,
oh.
and that pain. Because women, I mean, flip. I speak to women all the time, and the pain that we are in around food and our bodies, it's just, it's radical. It's radical. And as a society, it's such a massive pain that, yeah, I just feel that it's time for healing. It's time for connection, and it's time for love and empathy and compassion around our food, around our bodies, around our behaviors, rather than leaving that bride going, why did you have that extra glass of wine? You know, you shouldn't have, because that's 120 whatever calories it is. And then, you know, you ate that extra dessert. You shouldn't have had that extra dessert because now you're a fatty. And that's how we speak to ourselves. And the crazy thing is that your body hears everything you say. Your body is the only thing that hears everything you say. And I often say to my clients, you know, if you had a little girl standing in front of you, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, whatever, 13, would you speak to her like that? And everybody says, absolutely not. I would never shame her for having had an extra spoonful of ice cream.
I mean, like the viewers can see, there's a lot of great information in Melissa's book, but she's got a lot of gorgeous recipes in there as well. So I just want you to talk a little bit about that as well. Maybe you can talk us through one recipe that you love. I guess you love all of them, but maybe one of your favorite recipes that you can talk us through, just so we can get a feel of, you know, what it is that we can expect in the book.
Okay, amazing. So I actually have my book here in front of me, and yeah, I really do. Every single recipe I photographed, I wrote, I styled, I recipe developed. It's my heart on my sleeve, and I know that every single recipe in here is filled with real food, whole food, good, vibrant flavors and living. So I would encourage everybody that is watching this to get your hands on the book. It's going to really change the way that you cook. It's going to change the way that you view food. And there's something really magical that happens when you eat food and you know that you don't have to have guilt around it. And that you can just celebrate and eat it with joy and know that it's good for your body. So yeah, every recipe is amazing. I think this morning, I think I would encourage, you know, something that I see as a common thread. Let's talk about smoothies. I think I'm going to pick smoothies as the thing to discuss, because what I see as quite a common thread is we neglect our breakfast because we're busy and we're on the go, and we run out of the door with a slice of toast in our hand. And it's more often than not store-bought bread. And the store-bought bread, I mean, if we look at store-bought bread, it's got 38 different ingredients in it, right? Most of them chemicals and sugar. So we see that artisanal sourdough, perhaps a healthier alternative, not available to everybody. We meet ourselves where we're at financially, emotionally, and physically. But, you know, the reality is that often what happens is we're busy at breakfast and we're running out the door, and we don't give our bodies the nutrients that we need. So my smoothies in my book are really developed around packing in the nutrients, getting it all in, and sort of setting you up to succeed for the rest of your day, because it sets the tone, right? If we do a beautiful, healthy breakfast, it really sets the tone for the rest of the day. And I'm very big on encouraging, the coulda, shoulda, woulda. It doesn't matter if you had a unhealthy meal yesterday. It doesn't matter if you made a unhealthy decision or a mistake, as women can very easily call it. Oh, I've made so many mistakes with my eating. It's not a mistake. You didn't die. It's just unhealthier eating. So smoothies are such a powerful way to really set the tone, because if you have eaten something badly, you have the choice in the next meal to correct it. And smoothies are a nutrient dense way to pack it in. So I've got a smoothie bar in the book. I don't know if you're going to see it because of my background. We're actually in San Fran, but I'm actually sitting in my lounge in Cape Town. So let's do this. I'm going to take my background off over here. There you go. So you'll just see my lounge, and you'll see my very cheeky little dog that's hiding behind me over here. But here is the cover of the book for those that want to see it. That's what it looks like. It's a hardcover. And then we're going to chat a little bit about the smoothie bar, which is in here. So smoothies are really great because they're nutrient dense, and they're a beautiful way to really set the tone for your day. And what I would encourage in the space of the smoothies is to, if you are able to, invest in the best blender that you can, whatever that blender might be. I recommend a NutriBullet. It's got a high-speed processor that really releases a lot of the nutrients. But any blender that you can, these smoothies will work. Just blend them for as long as you need until they are creamy and smooth. And the fun thing about smoothies is that you can play around with different flavors. And if you are in a rush or just needing a quick meal, they are absolutely wonderful. So I've got in here 2 that I'm really proud of. Well, I mean, I'm proud of all of them. Oh God, there's 3. There's so many. I love them all. But the sort of the 3 that I would say that I'm going to pick from the left-hand side, because the right-hand side is your green, your berry, and your persimmon. And I feel like those are a little bit more common. But I do a cauliflower and blueberry smoothie. So often we think that smoothies need to just be fruit. Vegetables go really well in smoothies. So if you don't do well with banana, you can steam sweet potato, freeze the individual blocks, and then use those in your smoothie to add sweetness. And they're really, really delicious. And it combines beautifully with things like berries. So in this book, I do a cauliflower and blueberry smoothie. So you steam the cauliflower, you freeze the cauliflower, and then you add the cauliflower into your smoothies. And in this, I add almond butter, the cauliflower, frozen berries, almond milk, cashew nuts, the avocado for extra creaminess, and then some cinnamon, because cinnamon tricks the brain into thinking it's getting sweetness and sugar. So if you want to curb a sugar craving, putting some cinnamon on your oats or some cinnamon in your smoothies is a really powerful way to do that. And then I add some medjool dates, because those are nature's sugar. So we can't equalize all sugars, right? Refined sugar that comes in a processed chocolate is not the same as a date that comes with fiber, vitamins. So I add dates in there. And then the beautiful things with smoothies is it's just blend until smooth and creamy. So yeah, the first smoothie I absolutely love is the cauliflower and blueberry smoothie. The second one is actually my white chocolate smoothie, which is made with butter beans. So something different again. Butter beans, very high in protein, absolutely delicious. I love a butter bean, whether you roast it, cook it, saute it, use it in a smoothie, it is just the best. And then I combine that with a frozen banana, some almond milk, and coconut butter. Coconut butter is a more luxurious product. You can find it at your local health stores or like a wellness warehouse. And coconut butter just gives it that really creamy, chocolatey sensation. This is how we make superfood chocolate. And if you want to make superfood chocolate, I also have that in the book. So I use coconut butter, and then I add things like vanilla paste and maple syrup, cardamom, because cardamom goes so well with that white chocolate flavor, cranberries and chia seeds, and you just lob it all into the blender, switch the blender on, and if it's a high-speed blender, within 30 seconds, you're going to have a decadent, high-protein, nutrition-rich smoothie. So that's why I really love the smoothies. And yeah, there's so many. In my smoothie bar, I have 6 recipes. I think I've got in total in my brunch chapter about 8-9 smoothies, and they're all just utterly delicious, and I would highly recommend giving them a go.
The smoothies sounds wonderful. And I guess anyone out there who hasn't had breakfast yet needs to go pick up your book and try the smoothie. They
Exactly,
and it will change their life.
And I want people to know out there as well where they can find the book. You can find the book at home, nationwide. At Home is stocking the book. You can find the book at all exclusive books. As far as I know, Woolworths is taking on the book. Wordsworth, all the major bookstores, Bargain Books, all the major bookstores in South Africa. You can find the books there. You can also order books online with the Loot, Take a Lot, or just give it a Google and you'll be able to find the book near you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melissa. So before we finish off today, I just want to ask, do you have maybe one or two, what would be your top 1, 2, or 3 health tips or anything that you want to leave the audience with today as a bit of a summary, or anything new that you want to add perhaps?
Okay. I would say that my top 3 health tips. Number 1 would be to eat more real food. Stop eating things that come in a packet, that were made by man, that you've got to read how many grams of sugar per 50 grams or whatever. Stop eating things in a packet that were made in a factory. Eat things that were made in a garden and that are real for your body. Your body knows how to digest these things. And often the things that come in a packet are also coming with chemicals. And these chemicals are making us sick. They're inflammatory and they are directly linked to causes like cancer and diabetes. So eat real food. It's actually, if we had to, let's do this. Let's do what Michael Pollan says, because this is really the sentiment with which I eat my life. Eat real food, mostly plants, but not too much. That's really the trick, and stop counting calories and start counting chemicals, because those are the ones that we don't want to be eating. All our E numbers and these emulsifiers, stabilizers, preservatives. It's not, an apple doesn't have any of that. Just eat the apple. And healthy eating doesn't have to be expensive. Just a butternut or a millie or a apple or a pear or anything that is real. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to have superfoods and fancy things. Just real food. So I would say that's my health advice.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was great connecting with you. And
only a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And thanks for putting the content out there, and to be part of a wave of change, because we need to break away from this diet culture and this rigid thinking about diet and weight. So thanks for putting all the effort to put the content out there and wanting to help and helping clients to reconnect with their body's intelligence and seeing the healing benefits of foods and to be able to see that delicious foods are absolutely delicious and nourishing. So thanks for doing that, and thanks for taking
only a pleasure. Thank you for the interview and for making the time, and hopefully this lands on somebody and just shines a little bit of light into their darkness, because we need more of that.
Absolutely.